All right, everyone. I just kind of want to get this out in the open for you here. I'm going to go over Indiana Senate Bill 1, otherwise known as SB 001, which I'm sure you watched the news or read the paper. You probably have seen something about it. Um, it's kind of been a hot topic, especially if you're wanting some relief on your property taxes. And I'm kind of going to go through what it is, how they implemented it, and more importantly, how it's going to affect us, why we might pay more, um, and why you'll probably see a little bit of a decrease in property tax, but may not see the decrease you expected when it comes to other tax. So we'll get into that shortly. So the purpose of this is just to be a little informative. Senate Bill 1 is known as SCA 1, SB 0001, and SB 1. Most are using the term SB 1, obviously, for Senate Bill 1. So, what is it? Well, first, the bill was proposed to kind of help local governments out a little bit, relieve some of the debt that they owed, which was around $54 billion. The problem is that $54 billion in debt from the local governments was being levied on property taxes. Indiana, at the time, before SB 1 was passed, was property tax based income, and that's how local governments would pay for things that, we all use, such as police officers, 911, um, other other things like you know infrastructure and buildings and um, maintenance and things like that were all paid off what they were getting in property tax. With the expansion of inflation and how much things have gone up, as you can imagine, things for maintenance and infrastructure and upkeep has gone up as well. The local governments are in a bind though because they can't pay those property taxes, um, or rather, they can't uh, pay things back that they borrowed with the property tax that they're getting. So their initial thing was to start raising assessed values and taxing more on property tax. Now, assessed values were based on market reports and your market value. Now, as you can imagine, since the pandemic, market value on properties has increased, and for that being so has your assessed property taxes, which is why property taxes keep going up. Uh, just so everybody's kind of aware, Montgomery County does have a higher property tax. However, we are still one of the lowest property taxed counties in the state. We're about just under halfway there. So all that information can actually be looked up online. You can Google countywide property taxes in Indiana, and you can kind of get the list of where we're at if you wanted to. So just know that, yes, we pay quite a bit in property tax, but it's mostly because since the pandemic, or 2020, if you want to say 2020, the values of properties, whether it be home or buildings or things like that, it's all gone up along with inflation. So this is where SB1 came into effect. Uh, Governor Braun wanted to basically do away with the property tax based system that we have and shift it more to an income tax based system. So that's where this is all coming about. Under SB1, the bill really gained momentum kind of at the first half of last year. However, it moved back and forth through the House until March of this year, I believe. So things did move quickly for a bill like that is structured like this. It's a predominantly large bill that changes a large structure of Indiana state government and changes the structure of the local government as well, because it, like I said, it does away with the property tax based system and turns it into a local income tax system. So that's basically what's going on with that bill here. Now, like I said, SB1, um, what they're doing is they're providing 10% relief of your property tax, and basically up to $300 and tax credit annually starting next year in 2026. They also capped the amount of the assessment values so that your assessment can only go up so much based on your market value. And what they've done is they said, okay, well, we know that market value is probably going to go up for 2026, so they capped that. That way it cannot exceed so much amount. And they kind of opened the door for a little bit more relief with veterans and people with disabilities. So there's other programs for them as well to help with property taxes, and they get so much for veteran and disabled household as well. It also created the LIT structure, which will can't start till 2028. Any municipalities with more than 3,500 people will be able to start a local income tax structure. So I would be prepared in 2028 to start seeing some of that, to levy what they've lost in property tax revenue. I don't think that it's going to be extreme, but I would imagine that somewhere along the line we're going to have to start paying a local income tax. And it might be minuscule. You may not notice too much, but there will be something on there. The bill also, one of the things I don't like about the bill, it also has an amendment now that the public school system um, has to share their school funding through the state with charter schools now. So that's kind of a thing where our schools may see some kind of a dip in funding for that. So you might see more fundraisers and things like that coming along for our school systems. And we'll get into more of that as well. So back to the property taxes. Does it actually help with the property taxes? Well, yes, it does help with property taxes because the property taxes are being relieved, and you'll see a decrease in those property taxes to about the year 2026 rate or so. So whatever you paid in 2026, you're probably going to see that in, or I'm sorry, not 2026. It'd be 2023. You'll pay what you paid in 2023 in 2026, or roughly around that amount, depending on what they assess the value at 2026. So yes, you will receive a lower property tax, but at the same time, that loss in revenue for the city, you're going to see local government funding being slashed and things like that. So it could result, I'm not saying it's going to, but some of the results could be, we lose a couple city employees, and they aren't hired. Pay rates may not change for a while if you have a city job and things like that, because they don't know what they can budget for the next year because of having that loss of funds and stuff like that. Now, some of our city funds, we have an actual fund in the city where like our police officers and stuff like that are paid out of, rather than pay it out of the income tax or the property tax. So depending on what job field you're in and things like that, you may not be affected by this. So don't quote me on, oh my gosh, we're going to lose 200 city employees or something like that. That's not what I'm getting at. It's just going to be minor cuts, minor details, the stuff that they would normally see every year. Another thing that might hurt is our local infrastructure. As some of you know, they've been upgrading our infrastructure slowly but surely. I won't say that they're like hitting the ground running, closing every street, repairing sewer mains and stuff like that, but you will notice that some of that will slow down. Now we have a wheel tax that just started, so some of that funds will be used to fix your some of your public sidewalks and your streets. We can get funding now that we have the wheel tax. We can get grants and funding for the street maintenance and things like that, but ultimately, there will be stuff that the city has to pay for that may be hard to do when they don't have that income coming in. Another thing that will affect is limited public assistance. Um, just like right now, you can get assistance through the city or the county township, rather, trustee for bills and stuff like that. You might see that getting tighter and tighter coming along the line here, so be prepared for that. Could be some different kind of tax increases, as I stated before. In 2028, we might see a new local income tax structure where they either raise the rate a little bit or we pay so much amount of local income tax. Just depends on what we will see. I don't know how they'll structure it yet, but there are different options for them to do so. So, be prepared to see this stuff coming around in the future. I could see things like, if you go out to eat and you're spending 1% local income tax, on top of the 7% that the state has, that could be increased. So we'll just have to see what they do and what kind of revenue they're going to need and look for. Because ultimately, if you think, you can think about it this way. If a city worker is replacing a door handle at the city building, and the door handle costs $50, and it costs $300 for that person to change that door handle out. Well, in essence, it costs $350, right? Well, 2 years from now, it's still going to cost, $350. So if you're only getting enough income tax to pay for 200 of it, they've got to come up with $150 somewhere. So that's a really kind of dumb it down gesture for you guys, but when you think about roads and stuff, we have a $2 million road project. Well, it's still going to cost $2 million, so we have to find out where we can get those funds from. And that's, if they're only getting $1.5 million for that road out of our local income tax and property taxes combined along with our wheel tax, well, then we have to somewhere along the line figure out where we're going to get $500,000. So it is frustrating as a citizen, but I can tell you that I have seen, them really look seriously at what's going on with all this. So don't kind of stay calm and don't get overwhelmed, but this is, stuff that's coming. The 50% cuts on public school funding as well. You might see an increase in tuition fees so if you go to Crawforsville Middle School right now, I'm not sure what everybody pays. I think I paid around $350 for book fees for my high schooler. So you may see that increase to $400. Who knows what the school system will do to try to get some of that funding back. I mean, obviously teachers still need paid and building still has to be maintenance and things like that. So You could see an increase in school supply list where they're going to need more help with school supplies because they can't afford to buy the school supplies, and less money for athletic programs. I could see us spending more on athletic programs that we have. So if you already spent $300-400 on a student that's in football, uh, or you bought them a $50 athletic shirt for their school athletic program, well, I could see that increasing. So just stuff for you guys to be aware of. Like I said, teachers still need paid, and building lights. I mean, they still got to pay electricity. They still got to pay water. Um, and they still have to provide building maintenance. So just keep that in mind, and just remember that unfortunately, the state has caused this issue. It's not the local fault. Um, you know, yes, the local governments started all this by their $54 billion in debt that they owed the state, but it's not their fault that the state restructured it this way. Let's put it that way. So what's Crawforsville been doing about this? I've attended some city council meetings, and I've heard Mayor Barton talk about this. They have hired outside source to kind of check the books, per se. So they've been analyzing the spending of the city, where funds are and going, and looking at the fire fund and the emergency fund and the local income tax and the wheel tax and um, the infrastructure. And so, I mean, they've really dove deep into this, and I know that Mayor Barton has a plan, and it seems like it's the right step moving forward. I think he's done a pretty good job of kind of hitting the ground running before this bill was actually passed. And I also think that he's kind of moving in the right direction for what the city needs to do for the next 2 years, until they see what kind of things are going to happen. It's really hard to tell at this point. So just I think the impact will be lessened moving forward, but we're just going to have to see what happens with that. Um, Unfortunately, that's just the way they've done done the citizens wrong, from the state level. I think that they thought they were doing a good thing, and it is a good thing to lower our property taxes. We do need lower property taxes, but they also provided that window for them to increase tax somewhere else. So that's kind of a you know roundabout game, I guess. Um, so does SB1 really lead us to pay more? Not in property taxes, it doesn't. But like I said, it did open that door up for the LIT, or local income tax, uh, in a couple of years. So we may see a small increase there. I don't necessarily think we're going to save any money. I would say that, if we lost 100, let's say you didn't pay, instead of 400, you pay $300 in property tax. Well, that extra $100 has to come from somewhere. The city and counties are still budgeting for the same amount, so they're going to look to get $100 from us somewhere else. So uh, just be prepared to see other things rise. We're already paying a ton of money at the grocery store. Nothing's on the dollar menu anymore, and I know it's getting harder and harder to feed my family. I can't imagine some who are working 3, 4 jobs and still are struggling. Um, that's an unfortunate thing. So, just what I can say at this point is just kind of try to stay calm. Let's see what's going on with this, and hopefully the city will keep moving forward, and um, you know we can be in a good place. I think the race is coming up and stuff like that, providing the city some money, and um, really getting things moving around here has been really great. Motocross the Nations is coming up real fast in October. Excuse me. And I think it's just great to see the city growing. Hopefully, we can kind of stall out the growth a little bit. I think we've grown a little fast in the past couple of years, and I think our infrastructure is suffering for it. Some of our roads and things like that need repaired. Um, and I know that the 231 project has been delayed for so long. I'm sure everybody's ready for that to be over with. NDOT's kind of taking their time on that and keeps requesting more money from the city, and I think that's crazy. I think NDOT should have to pay for all that, but that's a whole other bag of worms that we don't necessarily want to open at this point, because that's not what this was about. So, if anybody's got any questions on SB1, just you know ask me on the Facebook page, um, and hopefully, I know I've got like 40 to 50 followers already. Hopefully, I can answer those. Spread the knowledge if you want to spread the knowledge, and that's what I'm here for. So, you guys take care and have a good day.